Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the DFO DFS show. Sorry for the minor delay there. I had to let my dog out before I started the show, but I'm here. I'm ready to go. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Tuesday. We have an 8-game slate. It was supposed to be a little bit bigger, but COVID and all those types of things, weather, cancellations. I don't actually think the first game, the 6 o'clock game, I think it was Buffalo and the Islanders, which got canceled, was on the main slate anyway, so not a big deal there. But hopefully it's more weather related than COVID related. It seems to be the case right now. But regardless, we got a really nice 8-game slate tonight. We had a pretty successful night last night, I would say. A lot of our top stacks had good nights. A little bit let down, obviously, by Pittsburgh. They had a pretty horrific showing. Their underlying numbers actually weren't terrible, but they just didn't generate anything really, which is unfortunate, but hey, it happens. And we're looking for better things tonight. So like I said, 8-game slate, and it starts with the Columbus Blue Jackets and the Dallas Stars. Joonas Korpisalo in net for Blue Jackets, and Jake Ottinger starts for the Dallas Stars, his second career start and third appearance of the season. Jake Allen and Thatcher Demko were both recently confirmed to start in this rematch, back-to-back rematch between the Canucks and the Canadiens. Canadiens had their way with Vancouver last night again. I wouldn't be surprised if it's much of the same again this evening. Chicago hosts the Carolina Hurricanes. Kevin Lankinen continues to be a workhorse for the Blackhawks, one of the biggest surprises of the early season so far. 196 goals against average, 937 save percentage, behind really what is one of the weaker teams in the NHL, and they've battled through some COVID issues as well, which so it's nothing short of remarkable what he's been able to do thus far in the early portion of the season. James Reimer starts for the Hurricanes. If you didn't see the news, looks like Peter Mrazek is going to be out long term, might need surgery. So this is pretty much James Reimer's net now for the Carolina Hurricanes. So big opportunity for him. Starts with a pretty cushy matchup with the Blackhawks. So yeah, hopefully he can continue a pretty strong early season start. He's got a 198 goals against average, 918 save percentage to open up the season. Jordan Binnington goes for the Blues. Darcy Kemper for the Arizona Coyotes. Pretty good goaltending matchup. Darcy Kemper is pretty interesting from a DFS perspective tonight because he's 6,900. Not really a game that I don't think any of us really expect Arizona to win that game, but it's definitely not out of the question. And Darcy Kemper, one of the best goalies in the entire National Hockey League, and at 6,900, it's hard to beat that. But again, we'll talk about all that stuff a little bit more in the show. The Jets and the Flames back-to-back rematch again tonight. The Flames declined to announce their starting goalie for this evening's contest, but we have David Rittich currently projected to start. But the fact that they didn't announce that it's going to be David Rittich leads me to believe that there is a chance that they go back to Jakob Markstrom. I mean, when you pay a guy as much money as they did, I'm sure that they're willing to ride him as a workhorse. Laurent Brossoit goes for the Jets, and the Colorado Avalanche rematch with the Wild. Philip Grubauer, 8,100, goes for the Avalanche, and a second straight start for Cam Talbot, 7,100. If you missed it today, the Colorado Avalanche are going to be out without Nathan MacKinnon this evening. He is week to week with a lower body injury, so obviously a huge blow. We'll get into all of those ramifications of that later in the show, kind of how their lines shake out, how their power plays look tonight, based without MacKinnon. They came out with an injury report, and there was like 5 or 6 guys on it today, all guys that have been sidelined before today, but literally all of them are week to week. So it's going to be a tough little stretch here for the Avalanche, and they're going to need their big dogs to step in and fill that void. The Kings host the Ducks. 7,500. Cal Peterson goes for the Kings. We believe John Gibson will start for the Ducks. They did not have a skate today. A lot up in the air with the Ducks. We don't know if Adam Henrique's going to be back in, although I would expect that he would. He'd be back in after sitting as a healthy scratch for one game, and we expect John Gibson to go for the Ducks. And then a rematch between the Senators and the Oilers. They combined for 8 goals in the first period the other night. I think it was an 8-5 final. It was an absolute just, pond hockey scrimmage basically out there the other night. So we'll see if that happens again. I would expect the Senators to be a little bit better, a little bit more competitive in this one. But again, the way that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are scoring early in the season, who knows, man? It could be another just absolute barn burner, at least for the Oilers in this one. They do have Mikko Koskinen back in net, not Stuart Skinner. No offense to Stuart Skinner, but he, not quite maybe ready for the stage yet. Koskinen's obviously been, okay, but definitely a more proven goaltender at this level. But still, 344 goals against average, 895 save percentage on the season. Not great numbers for him. So things, could get ugly again tonight for the Oilers. But if you're new to the show, all the stuff I'm about to show you here in this Google Sheet is available behind the paywall as a DFO Premium subscriber. So if you want to join DFO Premium, you can do so for as little as $9.99 for a week. Try it out, see if you like it. We have a lineup optimizer that goes along with all these other little tools that we have. So yeah. And if you're not new to the show, welcome back. And, feel free to ask any questions that you have about tonight's slate in the chat, and I will answer as many, if not all of them, as I can. First one, quick thank you again. I've cashed every day but one since I found this channel. Awesome content. Thanks. That is terrific news. Good for you. I'm happy I can help. That's what we're here to do, is try to win some money. But at the end of the day, you're still building lineups. You're absorbing the information and putting together quality lineups, and it's not me building them. You're still winning the cash, but I'm here to help. So I added something today, basically just breaking it makes it a little easier for us to break each game down game by game, sort it by each game. So we're going to start at the top here with the Stars and Blue Jackets. It doesn't look like an overly high-paced game, but it could produce some interesting spots here, specifically because Patrick Laine is making his Blue Jackets debut. If we want to, I guess we should probably take a look at the line combinations, how they look with Patrick Laine in them. I'm sure a lot of you guys have jobs and don't have the ability to be on Daily Faceoff or Twitter all day, but I would keep an eye on this in warmups, because there was a report that Laine was going to start with Jack Roslovic just because there were, a little bit of familiarity there from their time with the Jets. But throughout the entire morning skate, he skated with Alexander Texier and Cam Atkinson. So that looks like a really interesting line. The one thing that's going to be really interesting is to see how Torts decides to deploy this line, if it is the case here, because he's been using Texier on home ice in a pure shutdown role, going head-to-head against the other team's top lines. I don't think adding, Laine to the wing is really going to change that mindset. And it's not like he has any, juggernaut defensive lines out there that he can really use other than Texier. So I would imagine it would still be the same. But obviously, our projected matchups could be a little bit off tonight, just because the matchups could change with how it's built. But anyways, Laine with Texier and Atkinson. Roslovic is in a pretty nice spot with Bjorkstrand. No real interest in the second line. The Domi line has just been, not been able to get anything going yet this year. Delzato did skate with Seth Jones this morning. When the Blue Jackets tweeted out their projected lineup, though, they did have Werenski and Jones together. But if Delzato's up there, he's probably worth a little bit of consideration tonight, just because he should see some additional minutes at 5v5. On the power play, Patrick Laine, obviously on the top power play unit, should be a fixture. I talked about it on the DFO podcast for our season-long players, that it's going to be, this is a dangerous power play now with the way that with Zach Werenski can shoot the puck. And obviously we all know that Patrick Laine's got an absolute rocket. It's going to be dangerous. I mean, even Cam Atkinson on the half wall, a lot of options here for them to really generate a lot of scoring chances on the power play, specifically this first unit. The second unit, not quite as much, but it does bump Bjorkstrand down, obviously trying to balance it out a little bit. But I have a lot of interest in this top power play unit. Maybe not so much tonight, but moving forward, I think it's going to be a really, really strong unit. In terms of the tool here, the top stack of the night in this game, at least, appears to be Dallas's second line, which is Jason Dickinson, Joe Pavelski, Denis Gurianov. They have been kind of shuffling their lines around, so this is, again, something I would keep an eye on in warmups. It is the first game of the night, so you'll be able to make any adjustments. But Gurianov dropped back with Pavelski last game, putting Ben, Hintz, and Radulov together. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in Dickinson, but Pavelski and Gurianov look like a pretty solid mini stack tonight. The Stars power play is on an absolute heater right now, so they're worth a play. The problem is, though, actually there is no problem. They're both on the same power play unit, and it's been absolutely red hot to start the season. So I do have a little bit of interest in that mini stack. It shouldn't be very high owned, because I don't think that this game is going to garner too much interest, other than maybe people kind of trying to play the Patrick Laine card just because it's his first game and figure it out. What's up, Brock? Thank you for all you do. Share this information with us. No problem at all. That's what we're here. We're having fun. It's a nice way to wind out the day after working all day. Come on here and talk. I haven't seen humans in months because of the pandemic, so this is fun. Pit 1 was a letdown for sure last night. Yeah, I played multiple lineups, so like I definitely had a lot of them, which was a huge letdown. But pretty much everybody else hit. We hit the right lines when we're talking about the Jets. We're talking about the Flames. We hit the right lines there, which were nice. Tampa Bay 1 was outstanding. Boston 1 had a really good night as well. Slow start, but Boston, that was a pretty terrific comeback. But Pit 1 definitely kind of halted us from having a huge night. Otherwise, it was pretty good. So Dallas 2 looks like probably the best play in this game. I did add this little page here today. I don't know how valuable it's going to be, but it just gives us a nice snapshot of kind of what to expect on the night. As you can see here, both the Stars and the Blue Jackets not very good at 5v5 in terms of generating offense early on this season. So I don't expect this to be a really high event game. Neither team's really producing a lot. Both teams are really good defensively too here. So anything in the red on the offensive side is bad. Anything in the blue on the defensive side is good. So two teams struggling to get anything really going on offense, and two pretty good defensive teams. So should be kind of a grimy game. Not a whole lot to like there. But like I said, Dallas's power play on an absolute heater, but they do go up against a pretty good Blue Jackets penalty kill to start the season. So not a whole lot of interest in this game. 8-game slate. There's going to be a lot better spots to go here. Shut my phone off here. Moving on, we've got the second game of the night is Montreal and Vancouver. So I think we're starting to learn here that maybe just every single time Montreal plays Vancouver, like you just have to play Tyler Toffoli because he's just relentless. Like he just keeps burying the Canucks time after time after time, and he's really showing no signs of letting up. So I mentioned last night my favorite line in that game last night was Montreal 2. They got us off to a great start, kind of fell asleep after that. Pittsburgh is terrible, says Ray Rock. Yeah. With Gritty in the picture, I think I know why you don't like them, but they were terrible last night. I'm having a hard time with Pittsburgh. Like Crosby looks good, but the rest of the team really, Malkin still looks off. But yeah, Montreal 2 got off to a nice start. Like I said, I don't love stacking Drouin. With them, he just doesn't shoot enough. I do like putting Toffoli with them to get a little bit of power play correlation, and just the way that, as hot as Toffoli's been, I'm going to continue to do that. So I am going to have some Montreal 2 again tonight. They are pretty much in the same level as Montreal 1, who's constantly at the top of the stack list, but that's just because but Montreal 2 has better finishers. So much prefer Montreal 2 tonight. Sprinkle in some Toffoli as a one-off on that line. Get some power play correlation. He's still just 5,700. I don't know what's going on with his pricing, but absolutely no issue with playing Suzuki 5,500, Anderson 5,000, and Tyler Toffoli 5,700. Super cheap stack, not super cheap, but very affordable for as good as they are and as good of a spot. Obviously, Thatcher Demko is a better goalie than Braden Holtby, so it could be a little bit harder, have a little bit harder time scoring tonight. But I really like them quite a bit. I guess I didn't really look at the matchups for this first game. As I mentioned, Texier expected to see mostly a good portion of Dallas 1, 79% of their ice time, and 70% of the Ben line is expected to go up against Texier. And Texier's line has been, pretty good defensively so far, not giving up a whole lot. So that's why Dallas 1's not as pretty. For Dallas 2, they're expected to see a majority of the Mikko Koivu line and the new Roslovic line. Roslovic, we don't really have much of a sample on them so far, so take this sample with a grain of salt. But the Koivu line has been giving up a good chunk of chances, and that is why Dallas 2 is the preferred option. If we look at now this game, the Montreal game, again, their whole top 9 has been producing at a crazy level. They really don't give up a lot of offense whatsoever, which kind of takes Vancouver out of the equation. Montreal's just been an absolute wagon at even strength this year, similar to last year, and it's just they're hard to score against. And Jake Allen in net really doesn't change anything tonight. He's been outstanding so far. So I'm probably going to be mostly on Montreal, not a lot of Vancouver again tonight. But as we mentioned here, so Montreal second line, which is the Suzuki line, expected to see 32% of their ice time and 32% against the Pettersson line, 33% against the fourth line. Very good spots. Pedersen line's been solid defensively so far, but not like they're nothing that scares you. I mean, I think they were combined like -9 last night. Now that plus minus matters a lot, but they struggled last night. So I'm not scared of going up against the Pedersen line tonight. And again, the Danault line doesn't do a whole lot for me. So I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I'm going to continue to pump Montreal 2's tires. I'm a massive Nick Suzuki fan. He seems to put up a point every single game. So just going to keep going back to the well until it stops working. Oh, that tastes so good. If Crosby converts on that filthy Michigan attempt, it's a different story for sure. That was crazy. Like, who goes to the backhand on that? Like, I didn't even know that was possible. He's incredible, that guy. I was thinking Van finally steps up. Enough is enough. I think Vancouver wins a close one, maybe like 3-2. Honestly, like a lot of these back-to-backs and stuff, we are seeing that happen. Where the second game, the team that got smashed or lost the first game comes out much better, much more energized, and does win the second game. It's definitely possible. I think Montreal is just that good right now, and Vancouver's struggling. Like they're kind of spinning their tires. So most times I would agree, but I still like Montreal tonight a little too much. But I think a lot of people are obviously going to be on Montreal. They're going to be popular for sure. So if you want to go a little contrarian, I think Vancouver is still pretty decent play. Their top line, or the Horvat line, I guess I should bring this up too. They did shuffle their lines around in the middle of last game. So this is another spot where, you're going to have to pay attention to warmups because these lines could change. They could break up that Lotto line up top. Who knows? I doubt it. It's kind of like their only chance of really scoring right now. But they did break up Hoglander, Pearson, and Horvat. Adding Jake Virtanen to that line only makes it worse, not better. So I don't really have, if this is the way the lines are configured in warmups, then I really don't have any interest in Vancouver's second line, which is the Horvat line. Most of my interest would go back to that Pedersen line. They are much preferred. I do talk about them a lot on the show because of how, they all correlate on the top power play unit. They're all heavily involved. As I've mentioned, it goes from Miller to Pedersen to Hughes to Miller to Pedersen to Hughes, and they just rip bombs. So, if the lines are like this, moving Virtanen into the top six really kind of just brings Vancouver down for me. So if I am going to play a little bit of Vancouver to get, a little different, it would definitely just be that Pedersen line because there's really not a whole lot else that piques my interest. So this third game is interesting. We've got the Blackhawks and the Hurricanes. So Carolina won. These lines, again, I don't know what their issue with Andrei Svechnikov is. Like, I don't know why they won't just put that top line back together and let them just eat. But the Hurricanes are going to get Teuvo Teravainen back. They're going to get Warren Foegele back. Jordan Martinook back. Jakob Slavin back. Slavin, whatever. So 4 really important pieces back in their lineup tonight. Teravainen goes right back to the top line with Aho. But they still have Brock McGinn on that line. So they really, their numbers aren't as good as they should be if they would have put Svechnikov back up in that spot. I do still like an Aho Teravainen mini. Lankinen's been exceptional, but this is a game that the Hurricanes should win. They went into Dallas, handled Dallas pretty easily 2 games in a row, and I don't think that they're going to have any issue with the Blackhawks tonight, especially getting healthy, getting these guys back. So I do have a lot of interest in a Teravainen Aho mini stack, maybe still including a Dougie Hamilton or a Svechnikov to get the power play correlation, and maybe the hope that they reunite Svechnikov in that line mid-game. That potential is always there. The Stahl line looks like they're in a pretty good spot too, so Svechnikov is still a fine play in his own right. But Aho is just really cheap. 6,400 for Aho seems really inexpensive to me. Teravainen at 4,800 is way too cheap. So I do like them quite a bit tonight. And those prices do allow you to fit Dougie Hamilton into your lineup. He had a slow start to the season, but he's really been coming on the last couple games. So putting those 3 together makes a lot of sense to me. And if you want to go full power play stack, again, adding Svechnikov in there too, I wouldn't hate it. I would never fault you for stacking their power play. They're clicking at 26.9% early on this season. The Blackhawks penalty kill has not been very good, 78%. So definitely a spot where the Hurricanes could power play could pop off tonight for sure. So, I think a lot of people are going to be drawn to Edmonton, even though the price is way up there. I think that Carolina will definitely see a decent chunk of ownership because it is the Blackhawks still. But I do like the Hurricanes quite a bit for obvious reasons. If we want to look up their matchups here, it does look like the Aho line is going to see almost their entire ice time is going to be against the top line, which is the Patrick Kane line, and the third line, which is the Carl Soderberg line. When we go to the stats, obviously really good numbers for Carolina. One, offensively, they would be even better if Svechnikov was on there, but it is what it is. And the Blackhawks have been pretty solid defensively. There's no line so far this season, at least, no line on their team that's really been one that you want to attack, one that you want to exploit. They're all just mediocre defensively. I'm not scared of any of their lines really. There was a period of time when they had their fourth line was like all together. Now they've had to kind of break it up a little bit. When their fourth line was together, like it was, I think, Hagel, Carpenter, and Kampf, like they were impossible to score against. But now they're broken up. It's not quite the same story. So Carolina, piques my interest quite a bit. Is it contrarian to stack Carolina but not use any players that are coming back from COVID? I mean, yeah, I don't know why you would want to. Like if you're going to play Aho, play Teravainen. The rest of the guys, yeah, I wouldn't really care about the other COVID guys. Warren Fogle doesn't do much for me. Slavin's fine, but he's always so expensive. I'd rather play Hamilton. But if you're playing Aho, just play Teravainen. The Blackhawks just really haven't been getting a lot going. Patrick Kane's still putting up crazy high number of points. I think a lot of that has to do with the power play. The power play has been really hot to start the season, 33%. So I just don't have a lot of interest in the Blackhawks because, the Hurricanes have one of the best penalty kill units in the entire NHL. James Reimer's fine. He's good enough. So I don't have a lot of interest because the Blackhawks are going to have to do damage on the power play. They really aren't getting anything going at 5v5. And against one of the best penalty kill units in the league. It just doesn't look like a spot where the Blackhawks are going to get much done tonight. I don't even, I'm probably not even going to play any Patrick Kane as like one-offs or anything. Obviously, with the pricing of Edmonton, getting them in, you're going to not have a lot of money left over for one-offs anyway. But I have a decent amount of interest in James Reimer tonight, so I'm probably not going to play any Chicago. It just doesn't look like a spot where they're going to really get anything going. Smash that like button, says Tanner. Yes, please. Especially if you're on YouTube, smash the like button. Helps a lot. And if obviously if you're enjoying the show, smash the like button. If you're not, then thanks for sticking around at least. Moving on. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. I guess the one thing I did forget to mention, and it still doesn't change anything for me, is the Blackhawks are expected to get Alex DeBrincat back from the COVID-19 reserve list tonight. They also activated Nicolas Baudin, or Baudin, if you're super French. I don't know if he'll play, but DeBrincat should be back on that top line. With Kurashev and Kane, I mean, they've been solid. They've been okay, but it's just still not a great spot. So, but if you're interested in playing the Blackhawks and building a bunch of lineups and want to get exposure to every game and every lineup, adding DeBrincat back in the mix definitely helps Patrick Kane. Moving on. We've got the Blues and the Coyotes. This is another game that looks like it's going to be pretty defensive. It's a lot of games tonight that don't look like they're going to be super high event. And then you've got the Oilers at the end of the night where it's like the highest event matchup of all time. So it's going to be a weird slate. But DK did a really, really good job of jacking up Edmonton's prices and making it very difficult to play them with anything else of value. So it's going to be a cool slate because they did a really good job. Another great show, good information and content. Hit that like button, you filthy animals. Yes, please. If the Blackhawks don't get anything going, means less shots on goal. Why would you like Reimer if he isn't getting volume? I just mean he'll get volume, but you see here, these are scoring chances, right? Like this is their scoring chances generated. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not getting some volume in terms of, let's see what their shots are per game here. Chicago is averaging 29 shots per game at 5v5, or 29 shots per 60 at 5v5, which isn't a terrible rate, but they're just not getting a lot of quality. So, the volume is there, but they're just not generating a lot of scoring chances or a lot of high danger chances, a lot of stuff from the outside. So they are still going to give up chances. Obviously Carolina is one of the better teams at suppressing shot attempts. but there is going to still be a decent amount of volume there. And if Reimer, stops 25 of 26 shots and gets the win, it's going to be, he's still going to be a pretty good play. Obviously I'm not going to go 100% Reimer, but there should still be enough volume there. Like, I don't think it's going to be like a Yaroslav Halak 16 save type of night. Reimer has the win equity. Yes, exactly. He's kind of the one you can look at and really expect a W tonight. And I still think that there's a chance where he makes 25 stops. What about the cheap Dallas goalie? Is Ottinger that cheap? I don't know. 7,600. Yeah. I don't love him. I don't think he's that great, to be honest with you. He's fine. He's not Anton Khudobin, but it's a pretty good matchup with the Blue Jackets. They haven't really been scoring a lot, so he's fine. I'll get in, more into the goalies and my favorite goalie plays of the night in a bit here, but let's get back to the Blues and the Coyotes. So St. Louis too, if you have been listening to this show faithfully, you will know that, sorry, I just want to freeze this row. Okay. That makes it way easier to see. If you listen to the show faithfully, you'll know that I am a huge St. Louis 2 fan. I love Jaden Schwartz. I love Braden Shen. I love Jordan Kyrou. Their prices are finally starting to get up there, but I still like them quite a bit tonight. If you like the St. Louis side of the puck, Shen's been red hot, so he's up to 6,300. Kyrou's had a really good start. Kyrou's shot volume has been the biggest surprise of the season so far. Not of the whole season, but for the Blues at least. And 4,500, it's still a fine price for him. If we want to look at, the matchups for them, it's 42% and 33%, 30 and 28%, kind of a mix for them, really. Kind of just no hard match against St. Louis 2, or St. Louis 2 is not really in a hard match with anybody. It's kind of the O'Reilly line that really matches up against the other team's top line. St. Louis 2 kind of just goes with what they whatever comes to them. So yeah, clearly the best line in St. Louis right now, offensively at least. And the Arizona Coyotes haven't exactly been locked down defensive this year. I feel like I get burned by St. Louis 1 sometimes, especially because, they correlate with the Shen line on the power play. But I never really play the O'Reilly line. I never really play Perron just because they don't generate a whole lot of even strength. So when they get lucky and cash on the power play, then it is what it is. You just got to live with it. But I'm just going to keep going back to St. Louis 2. They're the only line that's really getting anything going offensively for the Blues right now. On the Coyote side, there is a little bit of interest. It's not a great matchup. I would but I do like Connor Garland and Nick Schmaltz quite a bit. The fact that they have Clayton Keller on their line definitely helps. In reality, the O'Reilly line hasn't been quite as good defensively as they have been in years past, so it is an okay spot. 24 scoring chances against isn't something that we normally would want to target, but if you're going, across the board, there is a decent amount of interest. This is a super small sample size here with Keller on that line. Oops, Jesus, what just happened? But Schmaltz and Garland have been producing scoring chances at a pretty good clip to start the season. Garland is just, loves to shoot the puck. So it's not a spot that I love, but if you're making a ton of lineups, want to get exposure, there is a little bit of interest there. The rest of this lineup just is kind of a mess to me. You do have Schmaltz and Garland on the top power play with Chychrun, but again, not a whole lot of interest in this game. If we look at it, the Coyotes have been playing this really high event pace of hockey this year. Which is a little different than what we've seen from the Coyotes in years past, but the Blues just remain one of the best defensive teams in the entire National Hockey League. And neither one of these power plays is really going. So this looks kind of like a sludgy game, but I do have a little bit of interest in St. Louis 2 again tonight. When we have the matchup chart on the site, as soon as I finish up the show, I do have them almost ready to go to post on the site. So as soon as the show's done, I will get those up. Kyrou has been an absolute gold mine, cheap and producing. Yeah, 100% love Jordan Kyrou. And if you play season long and it's still available in your leagues, you need to go to the waiver wire and pick him up. Do you have a favorite goalie tonight? I will get to the goalies very, very shortly. And are the rankings on the DF page from last year? Which rankings are you talking about? I would have to know. They shouldn't be. Different spots on the site could be stale, but everything that was updated with the draft kit should be live. Unless I missed something. But I don't believe so. All right, so the Jets and the Flames. So we nailed it last night with the Jets and the Flames. At least which lines to target doesn't change tonight. I prefer the Kachuk Lindholm line. Lindholm, I saw a stat today. I think Lindholm's factored in on like 45% of Calgary's goals this season, which is an absurd stat. So still, I much prefer them just because of the usage. And then last night I said I prefer Winnipeg 2 over Winnipeg 1. It's almost a dead heat tonight. I do like the salary savings. It's a couple $100, but could be a big difference by going to Winnipeg 2, and the fact that they all correlate on PP1, same as last night. I just prefer them a little bit just because of the power play correlation. And Connor is just scorching hot right now. Ehlers is great, but Andrew Kopp's been hot, but like $5,100 for Andrew Kopp just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like you can play Tuukka Teravainen in a much better spot. Well, not better spot, but just more consistent offensive player for a couple $100 cheaper. So Kopp's price is kind of getting to the point where it's a little bit out of hand, and that's why even Ehlers is getting up there $6,700. So I still much prefer Winnipeg 2 tonight. Connor, Stastny, Wheeler. A power play stack's definitely an option with Winnipeg. Their power play has been okay, but both these teams' penalty kills, as you can see here, have been not very good so far this season. So power play stack on either side is definitely a good option because it is hard to really narrow down which line is going to produce for either one of these teams on any given night. My best lineup last night actually ended up being it was the 4 Jet forwards. Like it was Connor, Scheifele, Wheeler, Ehlers, and then I don't remember who was with them, but that ended up being my best lineup of the night. Obviously, a lot of their production was late in the game. It actually could have went crazy, but Scheifele missed a wide open net in overtime, which was unfortunate. But so I think that's kind of a decent way to attack this game, especially if you're making multiple lineups, is just power play stack each team, because they have the way their lines are, all capable of producing. Johnny Gaudreau is red hot. I do prefer the Lindholm line a little bit, but it's not like the Gaudreau Monahan line can't get it going. If we want to look at the matchups a little bit, so if we're looking at Winnipeg 2, expected to see mostly the middle six of the Flames, with Adam Lowry basically hard matching against the Lindholm line, and then for the Gaudreau line, it's kind of a mix of the top 6. So obviously, it's going to be a high event game. It's going to be a high event matchup for Winnipeg 2. These numbers are really, really bad when Scheifele is not centering Connor and Wheeler. Like the defensive numbers are terrible, but the offensive numbers are still great. So that's all we really care about. And it should be a freewheeling game. Game stack here definitely in play on both sides. If you want to kind of get away from the Edmonton game stacking this game makes a lot of sense to me because like I said, a lot of these other games look like they're going to be relatively low scoring. This is the only other game that really looks like it could live up to the goal output of the Edmonton game. So game stacking this game is a way to kind of get it a little bit lower ownership. And it could definitely pop off if whatever reason that Edmonton game is lower scoring tonight and this game blows up, then it's a terrific way to build your lineups. Great stuff. Thanks for doing this and thinking of Binnington in cash. Binnington's definitely a solid play tonight too. I think Binnington might be my favorite goalie of the night because, like I said, the Coyotes have been playing at a much higher event game this year, and he should see a ton of volume and has a lot of win equity as well. So, but again, let me just wrap up these couple games here. So, ripping through, I don't have a lot of interest in this Colorado game whatsoever because McKinnon's out, so their lines are a bit of a nightmare. Like obviously, Colorado's nowhere near as good as they would be with McKinnon in the lineup. Like adding JT Comfort to that top line, it's not the same line at all. So I don't like. It's not like McKinnon and Landeskog's prices, Rantanen and Landeskog's prices are going to change. They're super expensive still, and their numbers without McKinnon are not good. If we want to look at the numbers here, without McKinnon, they're disastrous. So I don't have a lot of interest there. I think that it's an okay idea to play it a little if you're making multiple lineups. Play it a little bit just because Comfer's 2,800. I think Comfer is a really strong one-off play. He's going to be really popular, especially in like Edmonton lines. Like if you want to stack Edmonton's power play, like you got to play like 5 other guys that are 2,600. So Confer's definitely going to be popular tonight because people are going to play Edmonton. They're going to jam Confer in as a one-off, and it makes sense at 2,800. He's still centering two studs, but the matchup's not great either. Both of these teams very good defensively so far this year, two of the best on this slate. So there shouldn't be a whole lot going. Minnesota just isn't, they're not going to get a lot. Their lines are a disaster. They aren't going to be able to get too much going against Colorado at 5v5. They have a 5% power play right now. So just Minnesota just doesn't interest me at all. I do have a little bit of interest in Cam Talbot at 7,100 because, he was priced expecting Nathan McKinnon to be playing, obviously. With McKinnon out, Avalanche, their offense could struggle. So I do like Cam Talbot quite a bit at 7,100. He's super cheap. Probably my favorite cheap goalie option of the night. Like I prefer Cam Talbot to Darcy Kemper, let's say. And they're basically about the same price. So, his price with McKinnon out is really good. Confer and cash. Yeah. Confer is kind of just like a plug and play. He could bust, but like big deal. He's 2,800. Like just play him. It allows you to play McDavid, who is just like so expensive. Just not a whole lot of interest. Shouldn't be a very high event game. Speaking of low event games, LA and Anaheim certainly looks to be pretty low event. It's weird because Anaheim's top line does pop up at the top of the chart in this game, despite having a pretty difficult matchup with Anze Kopitar's line, but their numbers have been really good. Raquel is a very small sample, not very small, but fairly small sample size. I think it's Terry with Raquel and Getzlaf, if I'm not mistaken. Troy Terry with Raquel and Getzlaf. They've been really good so far. They've been really good. Even going back to last year, 30 scoring chances, 4/60, giving up nothing defensively. So I have, they're okay. They're not only they're fine. They're super cheap. 4,400 for Raquel, 4,000 for Getzlaf, 2,500 for Terry. So they're super cheap. I definitely have interest because you can pair them with Edmonton 1, and still you'd be fine. So I do have a little bit of interest. The Kings haven't been necessarily great defensively this year. Not as bad as the Ducks have been, but it's not like the Kings have these amazing sharpshooters and John Gibson's outstanding. So the Kings are definitely a team that you can score against. So I have a little bit of interest in Anaheim 1 just because of how cheap they are, and they allow you to stack with McDavid or Edmonton in some fashion. Other than that, though, the rest of these lines do not look, very appealing. I like LA1. I've played them a little bit in the past, but their price is kind of getting to the point where it's not worth it anymore. Kopitar up at 6,900, just no interest there in a game that should be as low event as this one is. So just kind of too expensive at this point. I much prefer Anaheim 1, and the rest of this game, I just have no interest in whatsoever. If you do want to try let's say you want to play Edmonton's first power play, you want to stack Edmonton's power play and hope that they get 9 goals again last night, they did the other night. You can full stack. You can full stack Anaheim's third line. Comtois, Steele, and Jones. They're all basically all minimum price. Obviously, they're minimum price because they haven't done much. Their numbers aren't great, but if they combine for a goal and Edmonton's power play goes off, it's not the worst thing in the world. The one thing that is worth noting, if you're looking for another super cheap punt play, Arthur Kaliev, all this kid does is score. He is expected to make his NHL debut. It is going to be on the fourth line. So obviously, you're banking on playing maybe 11 minutes, but he is supposed to see some power play time. He should be a focal point of some of the offense on the power play unit. So, all he does is score, and he's minimum price too. So they're, decent punt option if you're need a minimum priced forward. And then, okay, last game of the night. We have the Oilers and the Senators. So, this number's crazy. Edmonton 1 comes out head and tails over the rest of the field tonight. But as you can see here, McDavid's 9,000 tonight. Nugent Hopkins 7,900. If you want a power play stack, Draisaitel's 8,400. So they did a great job bumping them up. It's going to be very hard to play that power play and get anything else involved. The one thing that's kind of a bit of a misconception is that they dominated that last game because they scored 8 goals, but they did all their damage on the power play. The Senators really controlled that game at 5v5. So I definitely have interest in Ottawa tonight. I wish Tkachuk, Norris, and Batherson were still together. They're not. But you can still sprinkle in some Ottawa here and there. Edmonton is not good defensively, and Ottawa has been surprisingly good at 5v5. Their numbers are really good. They're just losing games because their goaltenders suck. So there's definitely interest in Ottawa here tonight. I think that I've been playing Colin White and Dadonov as a mini stack together quite a bit. Dadonov on the top power play unit allows you to get exposure to that. And Dadonov and White, since White came back in the lineup, their numbers have been terrific. They're generating scoring chances at will right now. So at 34 and 3,300, they're extremely cheap. I like them as a mini stack quite a bit. You can full stack with Nick Paul at 3,700, but I just, I don't want to go too crazy. Kachuk's getting up there in price. It's going to be hard to fit Kachuk in anything you play in any Edmonton lineups, but he is good. But you're obviously going to want a lot of Edmonton tonight, and everyone's going to. But I think one way to get different tonight is stack that Edmonton power play and hope it goes crazy again, because it's going to be so hard to fit people in that people are going to try it, and they're not going to be there. Like, I can't. Who else am I going to play? So really, I think that you can, Edmonton 2's numbers are starting to come around a little bit, so you can start playing Edmonton 2 if you want to not play McDavid. Cahoon's still really solid at 2,900. I love Jesse Puljujarvi if he's supposed to still be on that top line. He was in the morning skate. He's 3,900. Somehow he was held off the score sheet last game, in 8 goals, which is kind of shocking, but I'd expect him to get on the score sheet tonight. So Neal's a healthy scratch. Chase on PP1? Yes. Yeah, for sure. Minimum price Chase is fine on power play 1. It allows you to stack that entire power play and still fit some other, fit it at least. Van 1 or Winnipeg 2. Winnipeg 2. Cheap D, yeah, we're going to get there right now. But yeah, so obviously Edmonton's in play, but I do like Ottawa quite a bit as well. It's going to be hard to play Ottawa 1 just because of how expensive they're getting. So if I am going to play Ottawa, it is going to be that little White Dadonov mini stack. With Thomas Chabot still out, Mike Riley's a fine D play. I don't really know what his price is. He's only 3,900. He's a fine D play as a quarterback of that top power play unit. If we look here, the Oilers have one of the worst penalty kills in the entire NHL. The only one worse is the Senators. So this game could just be an absolute barn burner yet again. Good Branson, good for D-man. I mean, as an actual defenseman, the guy is just a nightmare. But he plays a bunch. He played, he's playing over 20 minutes a night. He does block a ton of shots. So he's an okay punt play at 3,700 because he plays a lot. There's a good chance he blocks 3 shots tonight because he's going to be hemmed in his own zone almost the entire game because he's terrible at hockey. But what are you going to do? Okay, defenseman. So Dougie Hamilton, probably my favorite high-priced guy, 6,600. Jeff Petry's just been on an absolute heater. You needed to play him last night to win a lot of money. And whatever, he might go off again tonight, but 6,700 for Jeff Petry, I can't do it. I haven't been doing it. I do like Torrey Krug a decent amount at 5,700 if you're playing that St. Louis 2 line. Tyson Barrie, 5,200. If you're going to play Edmonton, you might as well just go all in and play that whole power play and put him in there. He's been, heating up lately. He scored his first goal as an Oiler last game. He's got assists in 3 straight games. So Tyson Barrie, even if you're not playing Edmonton, if you're playing other lines and just to get exposure to that Edmonton power play, you should play Barrie. So he's going to be a great play this evening. Romanov is healthy scratch. I don't know if you guys knew that. Just wanted to let you know. Alex Edler, again, I played him last night. He was solid, 4,300. I would definitely go back to that just for the shot block potential. Osterley, yes. Somebody just asked about Osterley. Yeah, Osterley's fine. Blocks a bunch of shots. He does see a decent amount of ice time, does see some power play time. The other defenseman from the Coyotes that's half decent is Jordan Gross at 2,900. He's been shooting quite a bit. He is in the top pair with Chychrun tonight, so should see a good amount of usage at 5v5. So he hasn't been blocking a bunch of shots, but he has been getting the puck on net. So Jordan Gross at 2,900 is a decent option for Arizona as well. Sorry, I didn't have time to write it down. I'm going to continue to play Bowen Byram. Eventually, he's going to score. It just hasn't been happening, but 3,300, he's still super cheap. He's super talented. He's on the top pair with Makar. They could rely a little bit heavier, more heavily on the defensemen like Makar and Byram tonight with McKinnon out. So Byram at 33, eventually he's going to get going. Eventually he's going to put the puck in the net. Alexiak finally got on the board the other night. He's starting to block shots. Alexiak, one of my favorite deep punts every single night. I do have a little bit of interest. Where did he go? David Savard obviously is another guy that you can always, he's a shot blocking machine. He's only 2,700 right now. He'll be back up there in price eventually because he's going to just have a night where he blocks like 3 shots in a row for 5 nights in a row. So he's always fine. Kale Clague is, he's expected to see some power play time tonight for LA. So he's a really talented young defenseman. He's expected to see a little bit more ice time with Roy and Walker out. So I do have a little bit of interest in Clague. He's going to be in the top 6, probably going to play over 20 minutes. And like I said, pretty talented offensive defenseman. There was one other guy I wanted to talk about, but I can't remember who it is. Oh man, what is his name? I can't remember. What the hell? Bouchard, Evan Bouchard, making his season debut for the Oilers. He's like 2,500. So again, another cheap way to get exposure to the Oilers. Really talented young offensive defenseman as well. Highly anticipated season debut, so he should get a decent amount of run tonight as well. Goalies, really quick. We ran a lot longer than I normally do today. Oh, Brodin, yes, Brodin moves up with Dumba out. See some power play time. Brodin, definitely a solid play, always sees a ton of minutes, and his offensive usage has been going up, and with Dumba out, additional power play exposure as well. So Brodin definitely in play. Not a game I like a lot, but it's decent to go to for a couple of defenseman one-offs for sure. Favorite one-offs. Well, if we're talking cheap ones, Comfort, Dadonov, White. If we're talking more expensive, obviously like the McDavids, the Dreisaitl's of the world are outstanding. Toffoli, really good. Svechnikov at 63. I like Aho quite a bit. His price is so good that you can one off him in a lot of lineups. So there's a lot of options tonight. Basically, just all those guys I just mentioned would be among my favorites. In terms of goalies, no interest in Koskinen. Should be a barn burner. I do like Binnington quite a bit. Probably my favorite goalie play, 8,300 though, so he is expensive. It's going to be hard to fit him in a lot of lineups, but should see a decent amount of volume tonight. Win equity is definitely there. Reimer, we mentioned, most likely goalie, I would say, to win tonight and not give up a lot of goals. So I like Reimer quite a bit. Grubauer is fine. It should be a low-scoring game. He could definitely still win the game, but for an extra $100, I'd rather play James Reimer. And then, I do like John Gibson, 7,400, one of the best goalies in the world. And it's going to be a low-scoring game, but there should still be enough volume there because the Ducks are so, bad defensively that he should be definitely one of the better goalie options tonight. He should be fairly high owned, just because of how good he is and how cheap he is. Lankinen, people are definitely going to go back to him too. Should see plenty of volume. Carolina are the Corsi Kings of the NHL. They love to throw the puck on net. He has been good. I just don't see an avenue where he wins this game. Obviously, it's possible. He's shocked us to this point, but he's definitely the most likely candidate to go over 35 saves tonight. So even if he does lose, if he stops 35 of 38, still a pretty good night. Demko would be, I guess, in that same conversation as Lankinen. I actually probably prefer Lankinen, though. I just don't think that Vancouver has, I guess I shouldn't say they don't have any chance because they definitely do. And Demko's been outstanding. So Demko's a fine play, too, because he's going to see a ton of work. And he's only given up 1 goal in each of his last 3 starts. 2 of those games were against the Senators, though, but played very well against the Jets. But Vancouver's just so bad defensively that he could have a tough go tonight. Kemper, I mentioned, but I prefer Cam Talbot probably over all of these guys just because McKinnon's out. So, a lot of solid, cheap goalie options tonight, which hasn't been the case a lot so often recently. So, a lot of those guys at the bottom are fine. Like you can just kind of plug and play a bunch of them depending on your preference, but they're all okay. They should all see a ton of work and all have the chance to put up big numbers tonight. But that is going to do it unless anybody has any final questions. I guess the one thing I didn't show you is if you want to take a quick glance, this is how the top stacks ended up looking tonight. Edmonton 1 and 2 at the very top of the list. And then Dallas 2, surprisingly, way up there this evening. Again, I always say take Montreal 1 with a bit of a grain of salt, just because they don't really have that high, that firepower. I much prefer Montreal 2, which is right below them. Then Calgary 1, Winnipeg 2, Carolina 1 of my favorite stacks tonight. That Aho Teravainen stack at that price is outstanding. But yes, that's going to do it for today's DFO DFS show. We'll be back tomorrow. I believe it's only a 2-game slate, barring any cancellations, but be back here at 5:15 tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Best of luck to everybody tonight. And, please, if you haven't already, smash that like button. It helps a lot. But good luck. We will see you guys back here 5:15 tomorrow.